Welcome back to this discussion on the state of healthcare in 2017, and we are taking stock of what happened or what has been happening in the health sector in Kenya for the past year and 3/4 of the year. We've had strikes by the nurses, by the clinical officers, and by the doctors, and many Kenyans suffered. And those strikes, many said, were protracted. And now we're looking at the political will and the governance structure around the health sector. Is there political will to solve the issues in the health sector, to make health sector really vibrant, and to make everyone get that highest attainable standard of healthcare? We know that the new government has actually affirmed that they are committed towards delivering health, giving improved healthcare for everyone, and achieving universal healthcare coverage. And I'll start with you, Peterson. You have mentioned that the political will and the governance is the problem, or might be the problem, in the health sector. Will the new government, and coming into the new year, are we likely to see an improvement and a change in the public health sector?
Yeah, I think this will depend on several factors. Number one, yes, I've heard the president say that we want universal health care where it's going to be delivered through the NHIF, which has become a bit controversial these days. And, but with this, I hope there is a blueprint somewhere where we can be able to look at. Because then, if you want to provide like free maternity services, then you must ask yourselves, do we have enough finances for us to provide the equipment, the drugs, and all the resources needed for this? Do we have enough nurses to be able to run this? If the government would have a clearer understanding of what an efficient health system is, and this has to come through the ministry, and for us to see the goodwill, then the indicators will be first, we see the Health Act. The Health Act was signed in July. Mm-hmm. Actually, in June. Commencement was on 22nd of July, and after 90 days, it was supposed to be in operation. So it's supposed to be in operation. No. The question is, why don't we have a Kenya Health Human Resource Advisory Council running? Why don't we have the Kenya Health Oversight Authority running? So the goodwill will be seen when the ministry, because it's the ministry and the Council of Governors that are supposed to sit together, because they constitute these bodies. Once they're able to constitute them, because by then, if it's the issues of the human resource, then, which is a contributor to universal health care, you cannot ignore the human resource despite the, how many equipments, dialysis machines, the CT scans and MRIs you bring. If your health workforce does not have the requisite competencies to be able to operationalize that, then there'll still be gathering dust there. And we have seen this, mm-hmm. where in some counties you have dialysis units, but we don't have nurses who have the competence in the renal, the renal part of it. And so, I think maybe from the president, there may be goodwill, but the president does not understand health like we do. But then it takes the ministry, and I believe that is why it's there, to be able to advise him accordingly and to be able to implement what is there. If they are able to implement the Health Act as it is now, and then address the issues of health financing, if you want a universal health care, let us have an NHIF that seems to be patient-centric, not facility-centric. Because like now, I can't understand why an NHIF would pay, let's say for one operation, 50,000 in Mama Lucy, 100,000 in Kenyatta, and 200,000 in Nairobi Hospital. The same operation, the same doctor. And sometimes you wonder, does this pool that we contribute to, because how I understand a pool in healthcare that is supposed to assist those who do not have the resources, is that you're supposed to be paying for services so that everybody can get the service. But when the same service you pay differently to different hospitals, then it means you're paying a hospital and not the service. So if we can be able to look into this so that we harmonize them to how they are supposed to be, mm-hmm. we'll be able to budget enough. Right now we are getting a budget of less than 5% to to the health docket.
That's a combination from the national and the individual county budgets comes to about 6%, at least for the 2016-2017 budget year.
To a 6%. That is a less 9% as per the Abuja Declaration, of which Kenya is part of. And this is the reason as to why we cannot be able to reach where we want. We may have the goodwill, the government may have the goodwill in expression, but unless they are able to do the tangible things, to budget a 15%, which will mean that we can be able to employ the shortages that we have according to the staffing norms and standards, which is their document. If you're able to implement the act that has been brought in, because we said that there were no requisite regulations for us to be able to implement devolution, if they're able to finance and then implement the act, then we'll say there is goodwill. But until that happens, then we will still say this is a PR exercise. It was for elections.
Tekla, he has mentioned about universal healthcare coverage on the NHIF providing free maternity. And my question has always been, is it really free? We know somebody has to pay for it, and it is tax funded. But is it really free when that woman goes to the facility?
Mercy, there's nothing for free. Absolutely, please confirm. Absolutely. Because when this woman goes to the facility, this facility has been there for many, many years. I'm talking about the public facility. It has been there for many years. The first visit, you're told, okay, fine, go and have your test done, test for 1, 2, 3, 4 things. In that particular lab, you bring results from another lab, they're not going to take them. In a particular lab. For years, in that particular lab, okay, bring results. So after you bring the results, and then when you go when it's now time for delivery, there's something you have to pay for delivery and everything. What is so free there, Mercy? And if anything, I was just thinking the other day, I was looking at how they send people to labs. Like I said, this, okay, like a certain public facility, it has been here for years. And so if it's free and they want to improve their services, wouldn't they have a lab in there? So I don't have to go out there to go and pay a certain amount of money to bring my results here. Wouldn't they have a lab there to deliver the service better?
They do have labs. The question may be the functionality of the lab, because the labs are there in the facilities.
The equipments have broken down.
Or maybe reagents are out of stock.
So no one is supplying this equipment
So it may come down to an issue of management of the facility or the funding, as he has talked about, where we are really running short of the 2001 Abuja Declaration, sorry.
Mercy, I'll be very honest with you. If these people who are planning that thing do not feel what I feel down here, it will never be real. If the people who are planning it out there do not feel what I feel, because probably they can afford, I mean, if someone has probably a cold, they can get into a plane and go to Germany for treatment, and then they can come back. They don't feel what I feel down there. It's not going to be implemented. Yes. This is not the first time that we're hearing this story. Why hasn't it ever been implemented back then? Unless they feel what I feel down here, it's not going to be real. Yes.
Benson, is there political will to solve the issues in healthcare once and for all? We've seen from the government says we are committed to provide universal healthcare coverage.
I believe in Kenya, the political class speak nicely. And in this country, we have good policies, but poor implementation. Reason being, the management system is mingled up, especially now when we have a Council of Governors making their own decisions. We have Minister of Health here in the headquarters making other decisions. But the government, the president, I know he has very good plan, but execution of the plan is a problem. Especially now, they acquired those machines. We have dialysis machines lying in hospitals, not utilized, because we don't have trained personnel who can man that. They did very good. But that is why, that was an example that if Minister of Health is manned from one point, it will be perfect. But now, the issue is we have political goodwill, we have good policies, but poor implementation. Yeah, that's where we have a problem.
Peterson, from where you are, you represent a group of clinical officers. You've been in the sector long enough. You have led a strike. You have come to the table with the government. Where can we put our finger and say, this is where the problem is at?
You know, sometimes they say the government is deaf and blind. It doesn't see and it doesn't hear. So until you come knocking and so you have to come closer to the ears, that is the only time they are going to listen to you. What am I trying to say? I'm trying to say that in Kenya, we have done what? The comfort zones. We have perfected the comfort zones. Those in the leadership, they just stay in their comfort zones. As long as there is no crisis, they know what they are supposed to do. But as long as there is nobody heckling outside there, then it's business as usual. And they will not move from the point they are in. And so that is what has led medics. And I believe if there are patriotic Kenyans, medics are. Because they are very poorly compensated. The working conditions are extremely poor. But the medics have been able to overcome these and to even innovate where there are no equipment so that they can deliver services. But then, those who are supposed to look at the welfare of the medics to ensure that they are well compensated, which of course is the employer, they are sleeping on their job until the medics then have to come out. And even when you go to them, probably you do a memorandum or a petition informing them that we have these grievances that we want you to address. Sometimes they will not address. Until that time, you'll be on the streets. Until that time, you have a crisis. So I think from where I sit, the problem squarely lies with leadership and governance. Because a leadership must be privy to what is supposed to happen to human resources. Like now, for example, a case scenario, so that I bring the point home. In some counties, there are some clinic officers who have been in the service long enough to be made sub-county clinic officers, even for 6-7 years. That clinic officer has never been promoted. They remain in the job group they were in, despite them having a scheme of service that says after this period of time, you are supposed to promote this person. So they know, but they are not willing to implement until then, when the union is going to knock on their doors. And that is why sometimes it reaches a point where emotions rise. And then the only solution becomes the strike, because you try dialogue. Because for us, I think, like the Union of Clinic Officers, we have been known for dialogue. And sometimes you dialogue for so long until a point where you come to believe that only a crisis can be able to address this. And this is a point that we should moving away from. Because if we need stability in the health sector, we need continuous engagement between the leadership of the health ministry, the county governments, and the unions, so that we can have continuous conversations and we can continuously address these grievances, so that we have stability, because it doesn't matter the equipments you have in the facilities. It doesn't matter the tools you have. If your health human resource is not well motivated, if they do not have the competencies, and how do they get the competencies? The ministry is still supposed to give some finances to take them for training so that they can gain the requisite competencies and so that they can be able to offer these services. There's somebody who was telling me that medics should be like a pastor. It's a sacred thing where you are supposed to offer the services, and even not look at the compensation. But let me ask this.
You say it's a calling.
Yeah, it's a calling. But look at the Bible. Even God himself knew that you must survive on something. You must be compensated. There are provisions in the Bible that you must say, take something to your pastor. You must take 10%. The 10% does not go to God. It's supposed to take care of these pastors. And so, yes, it's a calling. But then if it's a calling, there must be a way of compensating these people so that their rights and the right of that Kenyan to life and to the best standards of healthcare can meet somewhere, and then they can both enjoy, because none can enjoy without the other one enjoying. Yeah.
So you have placed the blame squarely, your finger on the government. Tekla, on all the issues that we've seen in the health sector, where would you point the finger at as where the buck stops?
Governance. Yes. The governance. Because I'm from what is happening from all this, we're not reading from the same chapter when you talk health. Yes. The government and the service providers and the patients, we're not reading from the same page. I would attach the doctors and the nurses and the patients together, but not the government. Yes.
Benson, where would you place your fingers where the blame lies?
We have a problem with the governance. We have a problem with the ministry. We have a problem with the policymakers, because they are the people we negotiate with. They are the people who make policies.
Yeah, just a minute. I want Tekla to just expound a little bit. I'll come back to you on when you say it's on governance. Is it what the Mwananchi on the ground is saying? Because if that is the case, they have the ballot that decides the governance that changes this. So if you're touching the blame on the governance, but we're not seeing any change whatsoever or people being taken to task, does it tally?
You know, there's a problem here, because when it's almost time for voting, everybody comes, and because they know the issue of health is quite key, so it's so sugar-coated. Yes, we're going to do this, we're going to do this, we're going to do this. And so when they get into these positions, nothing really changes. Yes, absolutely nothing. Because like what I was trying to tell you is what I see happening back there, what I see happening in these public health facilities has been there for years. Yes, and there are people in those offices, some of them for very many years, and they're not interested in implementing anything or making any documents. Implementing any documents, yes. And again, as much as it is with the governance, they don't want to bring everybody on board. Yes. They do not want to bring everybody on board, because I want to believe if they heard these people talking, if they heard everybody on board, we would be getting somewhere. But just because they know what they want to do, and now they want to cut people out of it. People who are some of the stakeholders. Yes, they want to cut them out of it. Or rather, if they bring you on board, they won't implement. Because this problem has been there for years. I was trying to look at the memorandum when there was this strike. And I thought, now, these doctors are striking for nothing. They're striking because of the working conditions. Actually, it's more about the patients. Yes, than themselves. You see? Yeah, now, that's why I thought there's a very big problem with the governance, a very big problem. Yes.
Biwot, you're also concurring with the issue of governance, and I would want you to just state briefly and do your final comments as you comment on that.
I must say that where we have a big problem is the issue of governance. Reason being, the funding, the resources given to Ministry of Health is so little, and even distributing to the counties is so little that they cannot manage to pay, they cannot manage to promote the nurses, they cannot manage to pay the doctors and the clinical officers, and they cannot really run the services as required, because at the moment they are really building a lot of facilities, especially when they devolved. In almost every field, like they want to have a dispensary, and they are not employing. So the problem is the national government must consider to increase the funding to Ministry of Health, okay, and give then each county autonomy to run their things, other than heaping so much money in Havia House, so many doctors in Havia House who do a lot of nothing. Those things should go back to.
I'm sure they will disagree with you that they are busy doing something in Afia House because they're responsible for policy, but we'll take it at that. Your final comments, Tekla.
My final comment is, I wish, just like you said, I wish we could have more doctors back there. Mm-hmm. Yes. I wish we could have more doctors back there.
Okay.
Yes.
Peterson, your final comments?
Okay, thank you. My comment is, first I want to congratulate the President for actually appreciating the importance of healthcare as a pillar in the economic development of this country. Number two is to the Ministry of Health and the Council of Governors, because they're in the middle of all this, and they are the people to implement whatever the government is contemplating. And by this, they must start by implementing the regulation, and that is the Health Act, so that we are able to bring in this aspect of coordination which has been lacking. Number three is to the members of parliament. The only way we can get the proper health financing is through the budget, and budget is done in the parliament, so that we can be able to hire the requisite numbers and in the right mix, so that we can be able to cover the shortages that we have. Okay. And finally, we really need to relook into the Firearms Act, as I said, because I've looked at that act and I've not seen anywhere where there are periodic evaluations, periodic psychiatric evaluations of the holders of these guns. And I'm just imagining what would happen to somebody who is a holder of that gun, and then they have a psychiatric problem in the middle of it. Okay. Then we are going to have problems as we saw.
Okay. Yeah. Thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen. We have been discussing today the state of healthcare in 2017, and we are looking back at the health sector in 2017, the strikes that have been there, and we are trying to see actually where the problem is. And my panel today has put the blame squarely on the governance and the implementation of some of the policies in the health sector. And with me in studio was Benson Biwott, who is the Secretary of the Kenya National Union of Nurses in Elgeyo Marakwet branch, Tekla Mutisia, who is a human rights activist, and Peterson Wachira, who is the Chair of the Kenya Union of Clinical Officers. And that's where we wind up this year on Health Digest. We've been looking at health sector, and until next year, where we'll have new topics, new issues on health, new matters that affect your health. I've been your host, Dr. Mercy Korir. I wish you a wonderful 2018, a blessed, prosperous 2018. Have a good evening. Thank you.